What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for jumping into another video. My name is Josh, and I'm just your average Joe day trader. Hey, I want to start off by getting everyone used to that are subscribers on the channel to the AJDT community. We're going to be doing a little bit of a rebranding and changing some things coming up here in the next few weeks. And so I just want to put it out there and introduce to you the AJDT so you hear it and you know what it is. But Average Joe Day Trader, AJDT, we're sort of working on some really cool stuff. So hopefully you'll get to see that as we work through it and over the next several weeks as we roll everything out. Well, it was an interesting market day today. Today's Monday, August 25th. It's just about 8 o'clock at night. The market's going to be shut down on certain stocks here in about 7 minutes. The rest of the stocks will run through the 24-hour market, and we'll be able to continue to watch them, including the S&P 500. But I will say that it's been a very, very interesting day for the market. You know, we weren't really quite sure what the market was going to look like when it opened up this morning at 4 a.m. and then the 9:30 bell. A lot of people speculated that the stock was going to turn around and plummet based on having this amazing rally, which was fed on the Jerome Powell news on Friday. A lot of people also thought that the rally was going to continue. Well, we sort of got a mix of both. It was very weird. Like, actually, I made money in SoundHound right out of the gate. I literally waited for the market bell to hit 9:30. Everything looked good. By about 9:40, 9:45, I jumped into SoundHound. Everything looked strong. All the candles looked good. My support and resistance levels were met. I was really happy. APLD was doing the same thing. It was like a gamble. Which one do I do? Well, APLD at $15, almost $16, or SoundHound at like $12. I'm like, okay, well, I'm jumping into SoundHound at $12 because I have an opportunity to make more money at a lower, cost per share. So I jumped into SoundHound, let it ride. I saw it hit about $12.55 or so, and it started to turn. I saw this nasty red candle. Of course, I'm going from the 1 to the 5 to the 15 to the 30, just sort of monitoring all the candles to see what it looks like. And I said, no, I got to get out of there. And sure enough, it turned and it continued to head south, and I was very happy. I took profit on it. I want to say I made about $300 something on it this morning. Very, very satisfied with that and moved on. That was pretty much it for me for the day. I was locked down the rest of the day with some other work stuff. Couldn't really focus or pay any attention to, my phone or my computer or anything. So that was my day trade. But I will say that many, many people, as I was jumping back into, Discord later in the afternoon, were talking about what happened in the afternoon. Literally, the stocks, pretty much everything, and we're going to look at the actual charts together, but everything sort of was on a really strong rally up. Like, it continued from Friday on this rally up, and then when it got to about mid-morning, mid-afternoon, everything just sort of started to turn. And I wasn't totally disappointed because if you remember, I told you in the last videos that I made, I took a position in the SQQQ, which is the inverse for the SPY, expecting Jerome Powell to totally tank the market. He didn't. It went the other way. So what happened to my stock in SQQQ? Went down. So now I'm waiting. It's recovered. I'm back up about 50% to where I actually got in, and I'm waiting. One bad tweet, one bad piece of news, maybe some bad earnings on Wednesday. We'll see what happens, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I don't think it's true. I think I'm going to be locked into it for a little while, but you never know. And we'll see what happens to SQQQ. But let's go to the charts real quick. You can see here, this is the S&P 500. So look at the Friday, okay? This was Friday. This was the news. Everybody went crazy. It ran all the way up, and it stayed pretty consistent horizontally, running all the way into market close Friday night. Through the post-market, even got a little bit stronger, a little bit better. And then when the market opened up for the overnight trading, okay, it literally at 8 p.m., you can see right here, 8 p.m., that's the 8 p.m., on Sunday night, last night, it just started to do this complete rundown in the 24-hour market. And it was like, we call it pre-pre, but in the pre-market, it's 24 hours, it just ran down. And I was thinking like, well, I'm not disappointed. Come on, SQQQ, let's go. And then middle of the night, it kind of recovered a little bit. Then it continued to work its way down. I'm thinking, well, this is not bad for me, right? This is where I recovered this basically dollar per share. And then the market opened. Okay, so right here, about 8:30 in the morning, you start to see the S&P 500 strengthen, continued up, came back in a little bit, continued up, did really good. But this is like how the rest of the market looked. Everything ran up really strong until about here. 12:45, 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when it turned, and it turned, and it continued. And then look what the S&P 500 did right at closing at 4 p.m. Let me open it up a little bit. Hard drop, and now it stayed pretty much, with a little bit of an up, up and then back down, but kind of horizontal through the post market into the 24-hour. And you can see if you're watching it, it just ticked up here a little bit more. So we'll see what happens. Closed at 642, sitting at 643. A very unusual day. It was a very quiet, stagnant day overall in the market. I think it was almost like the market decided to go to sleep after lunch today. So we'll see what happens. What does that mean for us? Well, you got some really big earnings. So let me put up here on the screen so we just kind of can take a look at the earnings for a minute. So you're going to see, tomorrow morning, not like super big names, but these are the most anticipated earnings releases. So a lot of China and Japan, stocks that are going this morning. It was PDD had a huge candle up, and then it gave it all back, and a lot of people were really upset about it. It tried to recover a little bit, but it never just sort of made it. I don't really tend to trade outside of U.S. stocks, even though this is part of the New York Stock Exchange. I try to stay away from it as much as I can, but at the end of the day, there's some really good opportunities here for some of these stocks. Some of the ones that we're waiting to see, not as much tomorrow, but on Wednesday, you've got NVIDIA. Now, this is huge after close. A lot of people are speculating that NVIDIA's earnings are going to be rocket launch, going to be beautiful. I do hope so, even though I'm in SQQQ. Maybe I'll be out of it by that time. But NVIDIA potentially is going to run, and we think it's going to have very strong earnings. So keep an eye on that. We also have Snowflake, which is a decent company. CrowdStrike is big. HP. These are some big names in here that potentially could show some pretty awesome earnings reports after close. Now, I actually just heard over the weekend somebody talking about Kohl's. They're closing a lot of stores. They're not doing very well. So I'm going to be real interested to see Wednesday how Kohl's responds and reacts to earnings, especially since we already went through Target, we already went through Walmart. They both dropped significantly. If you didn't buy in at the bottom and ride it back up, it did. Both of those did potentially come up about $4, $5, $6 per share, pretty decent. So you could have made money on that drop, like I like to play earnings. But anyway, that's what Wednesday looks like. Thursday, Best Buy, TD Bank. The banks are doing very well right now, so we'll see how that works. Dollar General, I'm going to be watching that one, but not to play it. You got Bath and Body Works, Burlington, Dick's. Okay, there's a lot going on here. And then in the afternoon on Thursday, Dell is big, Marvell is big, Ulta is big. It's a cosmetic company. They always seem to do pretty well. So some big stuff going on there. And then Friday is what literally everybody is excited and waiting for. And I think it's going to do extremely well too. I'm trying to make a decision on how I want to play it. But Alibaba, BABA is the ticker, should do really well. Do your homework, do your research. Don't take any of this as financial advice, but wanted to share with you the earnings report that's coming up here, at least the most anticipating earnings report. Let's go back to the charts. Okay, we looked at the S&P 500. Let's switch over here to the average day trade, or AJDT, average Joe day trade, best stock list, top stock list for day trading. Tesla, look at this. Tesla had a very nice run up today, very strong. And there's a lot of options activity with Tesla right now. I don't remember the dating on it, and I don't do options, so I couldn't tell you. But take a look if you're an options trader. Take a look and see, because there's some huge buys of calls for a specific date on Tesla. Somebody knows something that's about to happen. I don't, but take a look at it. Do some homework on it. It might be well worth your while. NVIDIA, also this beautiful run up today. Drop down, and we look at Tesla. They both kind of had this drop, but not as harsh as some of the other stocks that you're going to see in here. NVIDIA, same thing, did drop hard at the close into the post market. AMD, not a good day for AMD at all. Had a hard drop completely at open and then rode the wave up. Palantir sort of did the same thing, but had an incredible recovery back up. Now remember, a lot of these seem to be reacting from the rally on Friday and gave a lot back from what they got on Friday. but didn't stop. They continue to turn and go back up, which shows a lot of market confidence. And that's really good news for a lot of these stocks, especially since, remember, we're in a very tough month, the month of August, and September also is brutal, brutal, brutal. So we'll see what happens. Robinhood, same thing, dropping a nice run up. Had that midday shift down, tried to come back up a little bit later in the day. Rocket Labs, I told you about Rocket Labs a couple of days ago. It's one of the things I hate to say I told you so, but look at Rocket Labs. It's been on a nice steady climb up. Rocket Labs was at $40 on Friday, and now it went from $44 this morning to $47, still sitting at $47. If you didn't get into Rocket Labs when we talked about it, went from 40 to 44, you missed $4 per share there, and you just missed again another $3 per share. So take a look at it, do some homework. I don't think it's done yet, but I'm now waiting for the pullback to get back into it. SMCI also had this beautiful run up today, reacted to the market. HIMS, not so much. HIMS did not have a very good day. HIMS, I would not have traded, wouldn't have touched. It's on pretty much a major downslope. Even in the aftermarket, it's kind of come up a little bit, but pulling back down. But not really what we want to see for HIMS. Ionic also did this drop and came back up and then sort of stayed horizontal until it went down. CCL was all over the place until midday after this drop recovery. And CNC, which is Centene Corp, same hard drop. SoFi is a winner again. Listen, we also talked about SoFi. I've been telling you, you need to consider SoFi for a longer term hold. Really still consider it. They're saying $28, $30, $35 potentially, $50, maybe not soon by the end of the year into 2026. But this is an incredible company. I've done videos specifically on SoFi. Go see if you can find those so I can share more with share more about it with you in those videos. But SoFi is a winner, winner, winner chicken dinner. IREN, IREN, nice run up all day into the post-market drop, but it came back and recovered. It's basically right now going into the 24-hour market where it closed. So nice for IREN. SBET, didn't really have the drop like everybody else, but it did sort of stagger up. So you could have said you really wouldn't have done too much there. And then boom, at the end of the day, dropped down. Run continued to run. Hard drop at first, but then ran all day up. And I looked at Run like, oh man, should I get into Sunrun today? I was like, no, I was in SoundHound. Saw profit, took profit, was very happy, got it before the turn. I'm going to show you SoundHound. APLD. APLD was a tough one for me today. Now, granted, you absolutely 100% could have made money in SoundHound. If you watch this candle here all the way to the bottom, 1557, I tell everybody all the time, APLD consistently at the market open drops hard, and then it does its run up through the day. It did that, came up, pulled back a little bit and continued all the way up, $15.57 to a high of $16.39. And then at the mid-afternoon day around 2:15, made another new high for the day, $16.40. And then it dropped out into the close of the market and sort of sitting, doing the horizontal mambo now. QUBT, not so much on that. It's followed a similar pattern. Look what it's doing in the aftermarket right now. Wow, I don't know what's going on with QUBT, but that is not a friendly candle. We'll see what happens in the morning. It is a 24-hour stock, so it's going to run. QBTS, same hard drop. NVTS, you all know that I love NVTS. I love Navitas Semiconductor. I'm just waiting for it to explode. I am sitting in it in long term and waiting for it to get back to where it was. It was over $8, $9. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of banter, a lot of talk about Navitas Semiconductor, so we'll see what happens. And then last but not least, one of my friends and my favorite, BBAI. Listen, BBAI, and what you're seeing here is my box strategy for BBAI. It's been living for several days within this box strategy channel, which is not a bad thing because look, what's happening is my median level resistance, it's holding. It's getting rejected against that. Not bad. And it also comes down to this support line around $5.30, and it's also holding at this result. And look, even in the aftermarket, it's literally just horizontal across this support line. So what am I looking for on this one? Well, you all should know I want it to crack through and break this median resistance level. When I see it make that turn and really it broke through a couple times, when I see it break through and keep going, I'm back in. BBAI. I'm back in. And I do have this as a long-term in my long-term portfolio also, but I like trading Big Bear. It has just been stagnant and running smooth, which in my mind tells me something's coming. They actually were invited to go to the summit. I think it's the first week of September. There is a summit that Department of Defense is at. I know there were some comments earlier about, do you think they're going to be hurt by the Army changing their mind and going in a different direction, not using Big Bear AI? Yes, but remember, the Department of Defense is not the Army. The Department of Defense is the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, okay, Space Force, all these different entities. So there's still a huge opportunity for Big Bear. And I'm just waiting to be able to look back one day and say, dang, glad I was in Big Bear. Let me show you real quick in my OG list. This is kind of my own little list, but I wanted you to see SoundHound. So SoundHound right here dropped all the way to 1205. I got in here at about 1210, somewhere in this candle. And it was totally good, totally fine, because I ran it all the way up here. This is where it finally changed, at least I thought in my mind. It got up here to a high of 1257. I got out somewhere around 1255, I think it was, 1250 something. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then I saw this drop and I was like, yes, good. Thank you, SoundHound. I got in, got out, sniped it, made my money. And then it turned mid-afternoon and went back up and it hit it again. It hit this resistance level again right here, which you can't see, and then it got rejected again and back down. Listen, SoundHound at $12.11 or $12.20. If you're considering a long-term stock, not just my opinion, not financial advice, but this is one I would be doing some homework and considering. A lot of the analysts have rated and moved this to a $20 per share stock, and there's a lot of people saying that it's going to get there. So give it some consideration. Really appreciate this community and excited to share with you what's happening tomorrow when the market opens back up at 4 o'clock. Remember, my strategy is I'm going to look at the S&P 500 before I go to bed, whatever time that happens to be. I look at it when I first wake up in the morning, whatever time that happens to be, 5:30. I want to see what it's doing. And then as the market progresses in the morning, I want to see, is the S&P 500 moving up, moving down? I want to try to get a gauge for it. And then I'm going to go to my stocks individually and understand my box strategy and what's happening with them. And then 9:30 bell, we'll see what happens. Game is on. So be cautious, be careful. Prepare for the NVIDIA earnings on Wednesday after close, as I shared with you. And we'll see how that drives the market. Listen, if NVIDIA drives up and has huge earnings, the whole market's going with it. The S&P 500 is going to run with it. Be prepared for that. You're going to see a lot of these stocks that you may think, not so much, are going to run. Matter of fact, I'm going to share with you here, I have a specific list of stocks. I have my Tesla runs and I have my NVIDIA plays, okay? So every time NVIDIA runs, just like S&P 500, okay, so NVIDIA itself, NVDA, this is the standard stock. You've got NVD, which is the Granite shares, 2x short. You also have NVDU, which goes the opposite direction. NVDD follows the S&P 500. NVDY, which also goes the opposite direction. Okay, so there's a lot you can play here, and it goes on and on and on. If you want to look at this list, pause right here, and you can see all these NVIDIA stocks, basically that run with NVIDIA. And then I have another list that is what is driven by NVIDIA specifically. So obviously I have my NVIDIA in there. CoreWeave is driven by NVIDIA. SBET is driven by NVIDIA. Rocket Company, RKT. AI, which is C3AI. APLD. Rivian also is driven many times through by what's happening with NVIDIA. Snap, which is Snapchat. NVTS. And Virgin Galactic. These are all stocks that I have identified through my own research, homework, tracking, and trending that they run with the NVIDIA. So pay attention to some of these. Some of these are very low in cost per share, so there's some opportunity. Do your homework, do your due diligence, but some opportunity to make some money in lower value stocks while NVIDIA runs. But you've got to do some more research. Some of these may have changed. I haven't looked at these in several months, so I probably do need to do some homework, but these are the ones that generally for me run. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Have a great night. Josh out. Peace.